So welcome everybody. Women-led startups received just 2.3% of venture capital funding in 2020. Furthermore, only about 12% of decision makers at VC firms are women. Now, despite the systemic changes that women have made and faced in value creation, there are female trailblazers with us. In fact, many today and many out there. Now, Compro, in collaboration with the Armenian International Women's Association, pleased to present this live stream event. It will bring together some dynamic women who will share their personal journeys and the skills that they deployed to successfully navigate the nexus of technology, entrepreneurship, gender equity as well. And they'll also share how they're paying it forward by investing in future generations of our up and coming female leaders. So we're going to tackle these key challenges today. Let me introduce the panel that is with us. We've got Ying Tao, the co-founder of Work in FinTech. Also Marie Lou Papazian, a founding CEO of Tumo Center for Creative Technologies. Huri Gudulikian. All right, thank you for your patience. The chair of the NGO Committee for the Status of Women in New York, and Laurel Toby, the managing partner of Supernode Ventures. So welcome everybody. I'm so looking forward to this. You know what, let's just start. Let's set the stage. And if everybody could spend, 30 seconds, a minute, just give me a little background so our viewers know where you're coming from today. So Ying, let's start with you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Ying Tao. I'm a co-founder at Work in FinTech. So I'm an immigrant. I grew up in China and came to the States about 16 years ago. And I went to Yale for my economics degree. But with that degree, all I can think of is working on Wall Street. So I started my career in Wall Street. I spent the last 15 years on Wall Street and the last 10 years at Barclays Investment Bank. And it was only a few number of women, as you can imagine. But I was the head of digital products, which I started to look at how to leverage cutting edge technology to transform and digitalize financial services. But last year, something happened within myself, which I can touch on a little bit later. I decided to quit my job at this high-paying job, right, high-status financial service job, and started my own firm called Work in FinTech. And we are, started with the mission to bring more diverse backgrounds people into this new emerging areas of FinTech. So really excited to be here with you all today and share my own journey and also learn from the common panelists.
Awesome. Okay, well, we look forward to hearing more. And Marie, tell us what brought you here today.
I'm immigrant too. So I grew up in Lebanon. I come from a big family of all boys, and I did my undergrad in engineering. And I wanted, back when I was very young, I wanted to prove myself and do as much as possible equal to boys. Then I moved to the US, where I worked as a construction manager, and then moved to Spain, and from Spain moved back to the US. And that's when we got our own family and kids, I started getting very interested in education and technology and how to use the internet and technology to breach the gap and to make education and technology available and accessible to kids. And 17 years ago, we moved with the entire family to Armenia, where I, together with my husband and our benefactor, we founded the Tumo Center for Creative Technologies. We started from one center, and the idea was to make technology accessible to, at very young age, give the same opportunities to all the kids free of charge that you would get it in the West. And then with this whole thing start growing, and now we have centers all over the world, and it's very exciting, and we're also expanding in Armenia.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Jorge, do you want to talk about what your background is?
Sure, it's similar to Mary Lou in just ethnicity. I am Armenian, born in Beirut, Lebanon, and I immigrated to United States over 40 years ago when the Civil War started. and very young, married, started a business. So I was in the business world of New York City for the longest time, but carried a lot of trauma, ancestral trauma with my grandparents' genocide survival, my parents' Civil War survival, and also just being in New York City, one of the most diverse cities in the world, and realizing how disproportionately women and girls are discriminated against, right? And I can't say it happened overnight, but very slowly, 10 years ago, I completely switched my career and volunteered at this organization called NGO Committee on the Status of Women. And it's been amazing trying to learn how to bring global women and girls' voices into the United Nations to see if we can actually make a difference in bringing equality to improve the world, actually, to really stop, to create peace. And the tech part of it is quite interesting because I don't have a tech background, but 2 years ago when the pandemic shut us down, we moved really fast and brought all of our advocacy online, and we have over quadrupled our effectiveness. And I can get into that a little bit later on how we're still fighting the same fight, but through technology as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then Laurel, wrap up. What brought you here today?
So I come from a very different background. I started out in media. I was a journalist, and I never thought I'd be in technology. I never thought I'd be a founder. I never thought I'd be investing in tech. It's crazy how your life and your career will transform over the course of many years, and you never know where it's going to take you. And so I just want to say to all those people out there who are thinking, gee, is tech for me? What does tech have for women? What does it offer? You don't have to be a techie or a total geek to be involved in technology. So I started out, as I said, in media, writing about business, writing about small businesses and large businesses alike. And then I started a cocktail party to meet men, took that online in 1996. So I was really early. I was a pioneer to the internet. And that cocktail party became one of the first job boards in America for media professionals. So it was kind of like Craigslist, but for media and journalists. Yeah. And I turned it into a real business, millions of dollars in sales, millions of customers, sold it, and then started investing in what else? Tech. So now I invest in software, mostly business to business software, no media, by the way. I know too much. And I invest in early stage, pre-seed and seed stage founders of all kinds. I love immigrant founders. So if you're an immigrant founder, come talk to us. I love women. I love, every single, every variety out there, the rainbow. And yeah. We invest early stage checks, and then we help our companies. And that's kind of what I do now. It's called Supernode Ventures. So it's a venture capital firm.
And Media Bistro was the company, right, that you founded. So
that was my original company. Yeah.
I remember. So this is great. It's great to meet you. All right.
Full circle.
So funny how life works, as you mentioned. So Ying, let's start with you. And just what does it take to be a female tech entrepreneur? I mean, you talked about banking, and then you must have seen something in technology that saw that as a growing area. So explain that transformation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jane, for the question. I think the first and foremost, you have to be a female in order to be a female tech entrepreneur. You can't be a male to be a female tech entrepreneur. But I think other than that, people always think there should be some differences between female entrepreneur or male entrepreneur. But from my personal experience and also the people that I get known to, the differences really come down to individuals. I don't think there is a formula, right, that you have to be a certain way to be a female tech entrepreneur. I think it all started with why you wanted to be an entrepreneur in the first place, and also how you define entrepreneur. I mean, probably before the pandemic, a lot of the definition for entrepreneur is people who wanted to start their own business, who wanted to be their own boss, who wanted to create something from 0 to 1. But I think with the pandemic, right, people started to get used to working from everywhere, or people started to challenge what works and career really mean. And you started to see this enormous opportunities, and people leave large organizations and become solopreneur, right, or becomes entrepreneur, or even within the large organization itself, it requires people not to continue to be an employee mindset, but how can you really affect change? How can you drive and advocate for new ideas? So I think, from my personal experience or from the people I see, I really looking at entrepreneur to be something that is a mindset. It's something that you don't want it to react to a situation, that you wanted to proactively, right, advocate for something or created something. And I think technology is just a mean to an end and really make that scalable, right? Because if you are, to Marie has shared, right, if I created a school without technology, then maybe I can get to a certain audience. But with technology, you can kind of scale very quickly.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely that entrepreneurship is kind of in your DNA because I call it the I will figure it out part. Like whatever, pandemic, I'll figure it out how to set up a studio in my home. So Hurry, you had some interesting statistics you said about women entrepreneurs and venture capital and things like that. Can you share some of that with us?
As far as venture capitalists, I don't have a lot of information. What I do have a lot of information on is what you just said about women really taking action.
Okay.
We are prone to literally take action in making sure that our voices are heard. And we really, in most cases, of course, there's always exceptions, tend to be supportive in raising each other up to bring them to the table. And I really do encourage this more than ever, because the pushback and the patriarchy is always ready to push us back into whatever they need us. They really do not want to share the table with us, generally speaking. In my organization, that's what one of our key projects is, to really make sure that women's and girls' voices are heard on all tables. Now, what I can say, let me just first of all share the website. With NGO-CSW, and as you can see, we have a 50th anniversary. We've been around for 50 years, but when we first started, I would say it was in the hundreds of women would gather, and some from global, in March to really attend and hold governments accountable for gender equality. Right before the pandemic, we had organized a forum that was expecting 8,000 women from around the world, and we had organized 500 panel discussions within a 2-week period. And that's a huge jump when you think about how far we've come in really becoming front row center and making sure that our voices are not shut out. Now, the tech part is really interesting. Right before the pandemic, we were also considering 8,000 women were those who were privileged to be able to have a visa or travel to New York to sit on the table, and thousands of others could not do that. And I remember a year or two before pandemic, Zoom was still at the beginning stages, and we're like, we got an account and we were experimenting on how to have meetings so that our global sisters could join. And then of course the pandemic happened and we took everything onto Zoom. The good news with that is that we've actually quadrupled our following and participation since the pandemic. So instead of the pandemic shutting us down, it actually blew us up. We have about 45,000 followers now, and the forum that we just ended this last Friday had 750 parallel events and thousands of participants. Now, the problem is, though, it still doesn't mean that it's equal access, right? And it was interesting because last year we said, oh, how are we going to get rural women who don't have access to Wi-Fi, who don't even have laptops to join our meetings? And that was an issue. So we worked with our regional sisters to put up a tent in some village and bring one laptop that can bring maybe 50 women. But what was interesting to me in my small group of tech people that were putting the platform together, we had a lot of issues with literally middle-class white women in Europe who could not figure out how to use the technology. And I thought that was not expected, because so you can't really assume just because you're privileged and you're sitting in some middle-class area that you will know how to access technology. We have to be really considerate on making sure everybody has the same.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Marie, she said something there that made me think to come to you next about getting into areas and getting technology into something. Because I know you've been in Lebanon and in some other areas. How did you tackle that challenge?
Yeah, I want to follow up on every what was said, and it's interesting because the pandemic helped us think differently. Like suddenly it was a wake up call, and because we had to use all these tools, it started giving opportunities to reach out to areas that you never reached out to. And for example, now we're expanding in all the villages in Armenia, and we're creating something called Tumo in a Box. And everyone outside Armenia is loving it. It's just a simple container box where we have 16, 17 stations, and it's open all day long, and we can have programs for adults and we can have programs for young people. And because of course we all got used to Zoom and everything else, so we're starting to think, how can we create hybrid situations, and where to focus, essentially, where to use technology and give access to people to content without them moving, and where is it important to have face-to-face and situations where the teacher or the workshop leader or whoever is facilitating needs to be on your side, and what are the percentages, and how teamwork works, how you can create virtual environment and all that. So it has pushed us to think about all these solutions, which are amazing. And I wanted to get back to what Ying said. One thing that I discovered is you have to love technology to be able to use it, right? You have to see it as a power where you can grab it and you can apply it, and you can make technology do the things you dream doing, and that's how you can really go very far. And that has been my path to everything we have been doing. And a lot of parents sometimes come, isn't it dangerous, isn't it this, isn't it that? It's always how you use it and what you use it for. If you make it you use it for your own sake, and you have a target and you see the beauty, it makes it, you can do really miracles, and we're doing them.
Yeah, no, I think, and the global connectedness that we've had has been just amazing. So Laurel, let's ask you about, so 1996, you created this company. How have you seen things change for females in technology, and how did you get, noticed in, among the men? I mean, I assume, you're one of a rare group of female venture capitalists. I mean, how do you navigate that whole world?
Good point. But before I start on that, I just want to say, a lot of women don't think, back to Marie's statement, a lot of women don't love technology, and a lot of people in general don't love technology. And I think we have to reframe how we look at technology. I like to think of technology and computers and phones and things like that as small, dumb children that need patience, right? If you think of it as like a small child that's not very smart, it's not as smart as it looks, and it just needs patience in order to help it achieve what it needs to do, to walk or talk or whatever it is. Maybe you'll have more love for your technology. I look at it as a tool to achieve something, and you really do have to have enormous patience to work with it, because it's not perfect. The artificial intelligence doesn't really exist yet. It's just, it's far off into the future. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because I really do want to encourage more women to use their technology and to try new things and to test new things out. But getting back to your question, when I started, it was, really the early days of the internet. There are very few women in venture capital right now, fewer than 10% of venture capital firms are run by a woman. So I'm in a rare camp. Not only that, if you looked at the women who are over the age of 50, forget it. I'm sure it's in the single digits there. So I think we have a long way to go still. And when I started my company, again, I was in a rare crowd. I just looked at technology as a tool, as a fun tool to achieve my ends, to achieve my goals. And whatever it took, I was willing to do, whether it meant, roping someone in to help me for free, getting people at my cocktail parties to sign people up, by pen and paper, with their email addresses so I could contact them later. Just, I did whatever it took to get to where I got to. But what was your question?
Just about like, how do you like navigate this world that is so controlled by men still? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you walk into a room and sit at a conference table and make a presentation, and how do you prepare for that? I mean, describe that.
So there's me, and then there's other women, right? So I'm thinking about the range of women who come to me for financing, and I see an enormous range. I see women who have MBAs and they have everything going for them. I mean, everything you could possibly imagine, good families, et cetera, et cetera. And they come in and they're not confident. For some reason, we still have that confidence gap. So what I did was I just faked it. And I hate to say that. I hate to say, act like a guy, fake it till you make it. But, it really works. We're still in a men's world, and we can never deny that. As much as we think we've accomplished, we're not running the show yet. And so we still have to adopt many of the things that men do by nature, by second nature. They just they're confident. They come in, they tell you this is going to happen. And women somehow want to be honest or transparent. And they say, well, I think it could happen. I think it's possible. And the guy just comes in and he says, it's going to happen and I'm going to make it happen. And so you have to do the same thing. You have to say, I'm going to make it happen. Here's what's going to happen. And you have to copy their cadence. You have to copy a lot. It doesn't mean you have to cut your hair and wear a suit and look like a guy like we used to think that we had to do. We no longer have to do that. We can still be feminine, but we're always walking a fine line. We're always walking that line of, just being forceful enough without being aggressive. It's the same thing that we've had to do for millennia, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's a tough road. And I still think there's a fear of rejection that women have more than men, like that I have noticed among myself as well as colleagues, both male and female, that guys are just kind of like, yeah, so they said no, okay, I'm moving on, where, women might ruminate about that for a little bit longer. So I think maybe we just have to get used to, there's going to be some no's. And
yeah, I think it's more than just fear of rejection. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we honestly believe in our hearts that we have to already have achieved it in order for someone to give their trust in us, right?
Okay.
We feel like we have to already have done it, whereas guys feel like they have the promise of doing it. And time and again, guys with just no more than a dream and a promise will get funded, will, get leadership positions, will get jobs, all kinds of things, because they just believe they have potential, whereas the women don't believe they have potential. Women believe they need more training, they need more education, they need to have some more experience under their belt. I was interviewing interns for the summer, or actually, no, I was interviewing for principals, young women and young men to come and join me at the venture fund. And one of the women shocked me. She said, venture capital was her dream. She went to Columbia, got her graduate degree at Columbia, and instead took a consulting job. And I said, well, why did you do that if venture capital is what you want to do? She said, well, I feel like I need to learn more. I need to have more under my belt. I need to have this experience in order to be a good venture capitalist. And all the guys I'm talking to are saying, hey, I can do it. I figured that out. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting and very insightful. So Ying, I think you might have had some follow-up comments about that. What's your experience with what we just heard?
Definitely. I think I mentioned in the beginning, right? I said I decided to quit from my corporate job last year. And I think a lot of things happened to me just internally, right? Very similar to what Laura has shared. So to share just a little bit of story of myself, while I was at Barclays, I co-founded a company with two other girls, which called Unicareer. So our business model is to help people to look for jobs and etc. And then when I'm asked to quit my job and to go into this business full time, I had a lot of fears, right? So I said, you know, similar to what Laura has shared, I need more training, I need to be more confident, I need to, you know, have my family all sorted out, right? Well, we were waiting for green card at that time. So I have a very legit excuse, right? I said, no, I can't do this, right? I'm waiting for my green card. So I didn't join the company full time. I exited, right, as a founding partner. And as a result, the company moved the franchise back to China and we raised $500 million.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my friends was asking me, do you regret? I said, no regret, right? It's a conscious decision. It is a conscious decision. But at the same time, right, it get me to start to question myself, right? In the sense that I always believed that I have to do so much to prove my worth. I have to be so prepared so I do not become a fool of myself. So I do not have those rejections. Is that right? So that is the first time I asked myself the questions. And I started to look really inwardly, right? So rather than seek advice, right, or get mentors, get trainings, I started to really be with myself and ask myself the questions. What do I want to achieve in this lifetime? What is my life purpose? What are my values? What are my strengths? What do I willing to risk? You know, what are some of the dreams that's so big that I'm going to do it, right? Or face the fear and do it anyway. So that actually created all these amazing business that I have now, right? So supported me to choose a path that has a lot of fear, but I'm willing to take it. So I think, you know, we always say when men or women get mentored, right, or get sponsored, they teach the men about the business and they teach the women to be confident. And I think it was so interesting because as we all know, confidence doesn't come from you just sit here and you will get more confidence. Confidence actually comes from you're in the arena, play the game, get yourself messy and dirty, and then come back. That's how little kids, right? We have this little kid analogy. That's how little kids learn how to walk. And it's just really interesting. So I was with a female entrepreneur, right? And then she has a lot of this imposter syndrome or doubt of herself. She's like, I've never done this before. I've never created a business or I've never created anything. And then all of a sudden, she was like sinking into herself and almost have tears in her eyes. She said, but I just give birth to two beautiful children. It's like a miracle. And I don't know how to do that, but I made that happen. And guess who that entrepreneur is? That is me.
Yeah.
And that's the pivotal moment when I realized, holy crap, I can create two human beings. I can create a business, right? Even though I don't know how to do it. So I would say similar to what Laura and Marie and also Hooray has shared, I think a lot of the times women just have to really embrace the uncertainty and the fears. And then go ahead.
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay, so here's a piece of wisdom or advice to, you know, other people facing this kind of thing. It just got triggered by what you said, Ying. You know, when I started my company, I would never imagine that it would have been this enormous success with millions of dollars and that I would be a multimillionaire. I would never have dreamed of that because every single day you take an action that leads to another action, that leads to another action. So my advice to you is don't think of the future and how big it's going to be and how scary that is and how intimidating that is. Don't allow that to intimidate you. Just look at the tasks every day and building up towards something great and enjoying your time on this planet while you're doing that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the big, hairy BHAG, it's called big, hairy, aggressive goal. Is that something like that. The BHAG, you'll be so intimidated by it that you won't actually do the thing you need to do. So don't let it stop you. Just think of the pleasure in the moment, enjoying what you're doing every single day, no matter how bad one day is versus another day. Just think of those small daily goals and weekly goals and monthly goals, not, I want to build a $200 million company. And eventually you will get to where you need to go. It might be a $200 million company. It might be, an NGO. It might be, an organization. It might be a nonprofit. Who knows where it'll take you? But try to just stay in the moment instead of, looking off at the fearful dark cloud, off in the future.
Yeah, because it is a kind of a buildup of small things over time is success. So Marie, let's start with you and let's get Huri. Just talk a little bit about why you think it's important that women are in positions of power and what kind of message does that send and how does that just help our overall goals of, creating a better world?
I always think that it's not like women have to be, but we all have to be, men and women, in positions equally, and have the opportunity to succeed. Like we were talking and saying, I agree completely that it's step by step going towards, and the more you do, the more you become resilient, the more you have experience, the more you have a better judgment, and the more you start doing more, the more you do, the more you continue. So it's addictive in reality, and of course you have to take pleasure of what you're doing. It's very important. You have to love what you're doing, no matter what. I always tell my staff that my day pass as a second, and I'm so angry that there are so many things I would have loved to do, and the day is over again, and then the next day is the same. But when you achieve things, there is not that you became wealthier or more important, but there is this satisfaction that is very nice, and it stays with you, and the fact that you're making a change in this world is, I don't know if this is something more to women than men, but it gives me a huge satisfaction and pleasure when I achieve something. That's enough. I don't need anything else. I don't need the recognition. I don't need anything. I'm happy, and I think that also throughout the years became something that I was able to transfer to others, especially women. They have been. There were many saying, "I want to be like you," so which is very nice, and the most important at the end is making a real difference, leaving something behind you that makes sense, and changes mentalities, changes things. That's me. I think. I don't know if I'm different from the others, but that's me.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of us can relate to the achievement is the fun. And that's really where I get. Huri, what kind of thoughts do you have about what we've all just talked about?
Yes, it's been so fascinating, and thank you all for sharing from your experiences and your knowledge. This is the fun part of it, right? Women standing together, shoulder to shoulder, and learning from each other and expanding our horizons. And I think how I would really bring it all together, which is something that Mary Lou and I were talking about before we started the discussion, is that taking action. And again, what Ying was saying, what Laura was saying, taking action is the most important thing. Is don't get stuck with the future, don't get stuck with the charts and the data and all of that stuff. And again, this is coming from someone who really is not that interested. So I'm sure somebody can argue against me, and that's fine. But for me, it's always been about what can we do to solve problems? And I believe you said the same thing, Jane, right? We're like the problem solvers. And to do that, You need to take action. You can't just sit back and say, okay, let's see. Let's read all these books. Let's check all the data. And then by the time you do that, you know, Putin is in Ukraine already, you know, or the male leaders of this world are taking action against us as we speak. Now, that's not because they really want to suppress us and that's the only way to go, but that's what they know. That's the only thing they know. So it really is up to us. And the other thing I wanted to add, which is really important and it has helped me, and again, similar to everybody else's story, the way I became the chair of NGO CSW in the last 5 years was because I just kept raising my hand and saying, I have a solution, I have a solution, let's do this, let's do that. But the one of the things that was holding us back as well were really the competition sometimes within the female and women's spaces. And I don't think that is a bad thing. It actually can be a really good thing because then you know that they care, right? They want to be part of this community. They want, in my world, it's actually for funding because there's just so much funding available for women-led NGOs. So then who's going to do better to get the better funding? And that becomes, and my approach has been, I really do believe this, both in the business world and in the NGO world, because I've done both. There's enough money, there's enough power, there's enough recognition, if that's what you want in the world, to be shared by everyone. I think we really need to approach our work, taking action, from a point of abundance. And one of the models that we have adopted, and I have to say that so far it's successful, is to work with our coalitions in a collaborative, transparent, shared leadership model. Those words actually scare men because it's really hard for them to wrap their heads around that. But that's not going to slow us down, right? And I have noticed that even the hardest women who has been, you know, either abused or taken advantage of, when they realize that we are not here to take anything away from them. On the contrary, our goal is to plan, to add, and to bring more people onto the table. And I always like to end my spiel by saying, I think it's Fannie Lou Hamer, but I don't know if she really created this. And it's a statement that I live by every day, is that no one is free until everyone is free. No one is successful until everyone has access to everything that I have access to. And that's what drives us at NGO CSW and for me personally. So hopefully that's helpful for somebody to be inspired and say, hell, I'll take action. I'll bring my sisters with me, or, you know, my collaborators. And
I mean, at some point you just got to do it. I mean, when I started my business, I was just like, well, I'll just, you know, jump off the cliff and we'll see what happens and I'll figure it out, you know? So I'd like to we'll start with you, Ying, and go through everybody. What are some concrete steps that we can do or that women can do to help other women succeed in business and in leadership roles?
Awesome. I think that's a really great question, Jean, especially you meant how women can help women, right? Or how everybody can help women. I think generally, even like back to some of the earlier questions, right? I think it requires three things for anyone who wants to create a business. So the first one is a vision. Like you really have to have this idea, right? Like what you wanted to create or achieve in the world. And then I think everybody touched on actions. How can you train your mind and start taking actions? And number three is really a team, which takes a village, right, to support everybody. I think women, you know, a lot of research has shown from a genetic difference perspective between men and women is really wired for connection. So women wants to have a community, to have a connection, to share, to nurture, right? To be with a lot of other people. So one thing I noticed, this is just from my experience, but then later on, I think we have started to implement it in almost every place that I go, is when I was in corporate, I have a lot of colleagues who invite me to go for a chit chat, right? One-on-one, kind of coffee chat and walk. Every single time I was with a woman, we always talk about whether, you know, kids, life, movie, which is fun, which is great, right? We are building a lot of connections. but every single meeting, I got invited for this chat with men every single time. It was about what's going on, what you have been working on, what I have been working on, what are the opportunities, who can you connect me to? I have this idea. Can you share some, perspectives and etc. So from that perspective, what I have learned is maybe one of the first thing to help women is to intentionally create community and network for women to come and talk about business, to come and talk about opportunities, to come and talk about, who do you need to meet? I can make those introductions, to start making introductions and connect, like-minded or amazing women together so they can hold each other accountable and get into actions and create something off the back of that.
Yeah. Oh, good idea. Okay, Laurel, what do you think?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That is amazing advice. So I think in venture capital, it's interesting. I do see a lot of that transactional relationship building happening. That's what I think of it as, transactional, right? But I do think outside of venture and the startup community, women maybe feel awkward and uncomfortable being transactional. It feels dirty to them. It feels dishonest, like they're taking something. So I would say we have to really kind of get rid of that idea that it's dirty and that transactional is bad. And the only way to do that is, like Ying said, to bring women together purposefully for transactional relationships, for events that, the whole game is trading, right? Trading card, and maybe make it, gamify it, make it fun, maybe explain it outright that there is a reason to do this and we want to win too. That the only way women can win is to be transactional with one another, so that we can create a support and lift ourselves up together. The other things I would say outside of that, that help women succeed and achieve their leadership goals. So I speak to a lot of young women, and I would say take more risk. That's my advice to you, is always say yes.
Yeah.
Instead of saying no, I'm too busy, the kids are sick, blah, 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 blah. Don't let your husband be the guy or the person in the family who gets to go out and go to business events. Insist that some nights your husband stays back, or your wife, or what have you, and you get to go out to the business event. Don't use it as an excuse. Don't be lazy. You always have to kind of push yourself to continue to do that outreach, to improve your mind, to go out there and to expose yourself to new ideas, new people, new situations. And I know it's exhausting. I know you'd rather just Netflix and chill and maybe have like a pint of ice cream, but that isn't going to further your goals in your career, in your life. And so you've got to kind of you got to do the work, and the work is to say yes.
Yeah. It's funny because I've said exactly that same thing when I've spoken to young college students. And what I say is say yes to almost everything. Like, I don't think there's some things are kind of questionable ethically that, but I think, don't do it because you're tired. Just go and find the energy to do it. And not everything's going to result in something, but a lot of things will, and it kind of builds upon itself. So, okay. So some thoughts from Marie and Huri before we've got almost 15 minutes left and I have two more questions. So what are your thoughts about all that?
I wanted to add something to what Ying said. I agree completely, but I would say events where not only women are there, men too.
Yeah.
When you separate yourself and you start creating this secure environment, it starts becoming dangerous because you're in a bubble. Once you have them, you're under the gun, and you have to act like them. Like Laurel was saying, you have to act like them. So it trains you, and more training gives you more confidence. So I'm always at Tumo. We almost never say we will organize something for only girls. And And I keep saying, why only girls? Are we lower? Are we less intelligent? We cannot compete. So I always, and they get angry at me because they come with, we have funding. Can you do a competition for girls? I say, no, we do a competition for everyone, and girls will compete against boys. Why would we separate them? And my thinking is always, the more training you get, the stronger you are.
Yeah, good point. Okay, go jump in, Hori.
I have so much to say. Okay, first of all, yes to yes to yes. Yes,
Yeah.
say yes to everything. I agree, because that's literally how I got to where I am, because I just kept saying yes to everything. But I also want to follow up on what Mary Lou said, which is so, so important. And I don't know if the audience is aware, Armenia is actually per capita one of the largest ratio of women to men in technology, and the relation to what the work that I do is that the government has also signed on to what this is called the Action Coalitions and the Generation Equality Forum. I'll share that link as well, because it's fascinating, and I feel like everybody needs to know what is happening globally with gender equality. So I'm very proud to say that Armenia has signed the Action Coalition, and next year CSW actually is going to be on tech. So tech and women's equality space. But I just wanted to bring it all together with how I feel that I would like to lead and continue. First of all, to do that, you need youth. And I know for Mary Lou, that's her whole world. So I'm not talking to you, Mary Lou. I'm just talking in general. I think one of the reasons we are as successful as we are, because from day one, I wanted to really empower the youth leaders and young professionals, and it has made a world of difference. They inspire us, we learn from each other, and it guarantees your future. Otherwise, it's all old women sitting on the board and you're waiting for somebody to step up again. And the second thing is, and this is really important for everyone, is that make the connection between the individual and the universal. Whatever it is that you're doing affects the world. Whatever is happening in the world affects the individual. And we really need to pay attention to that on a daily basis. I know that sounds like a lot of pressure and like, oh, why should I worry about? But every decision you make, every step that you take is affecting. I mean, this year's topic was climate justice. I mean, I don't need to explain to you why that applies, right? How you recycle and how you use your water, it will affect people. But I think it's really important to make that connection so that when you are making decisions and taking actions, you realize how you're affecting the world. To me, it's inspiring. And I hope my advice is going to help people be inspired too. Instead of thinking that I'm just in this bubble, I'm all by myself and nobody's going to really know what's going on. No, trust me, even in your own bubble, whatever you do has a domino effect.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about technology a little bit, Ying, and can some of these emerging technologies, Web3, NFTs kind of tied to Web3, blockchain, artificial intelligence, can any of those help bridge this divide that we still see in gender?
Definitely. I think, Marie made a really great point, right? When we are talking about diversity and inclusion, we mean we include all, meaning men, women, elderly people, or youth. So I think the emerging technology is really exciting in the sense that it's new, and it also builds upon a great foundation that has been established now. So which basically creates a playground for really leveling the playing field and create an opportunity for diversity and inclusion. So when we started working fintech, right, we sorted about, I spent the last 15 years in finance and see this, enormous opportunity for technology and really looking at the fintech space. The first thing we're thinking is, as we're building this new thing, how can we get diversity and inclusion in this equation? So we don't kind of fix the problem, right, 10 years from today. We start with a great start, right? So we don't have to, fix the problem later. And as a result, as we are starting this journey, we met with this schoolboy in London. He is 12 years old, and he made his name last year by creating large collections of NFTs that collectively, create almost a $20 million valuation of his NFT. And we learned so much, right? Me and my partner, we each have 20 plus years of experience. We learned so much from this 12-year-old boy about NFT. The reason is it's new. So he started the same time. He's probably started 6 months before we did. So as a result, right, he's now like, one of the person who probably know so much about NFT. And that's where I think, for all the entrepreneurs out there, all the investors out there, when you are thinking of creating new business in the new world with the emerging technology, when you are thinking, right, investing in these companies, this is the perfect place to start right with the DEI in mind, right? So we can create a future that we don't have to fix it years later.
Yeah. Okay. Hari, we'll go around. What's your thoughts about that? Technology and the gender divide. Oh, are you on mute?
Sorry. Okay. I was waiting for my turn going around, but it's okay. I'm always ready to talk. So, I mean, there's no question in my mind that there has to be, and I put the link in the chat as well, because we are so excited for this conversation next year, and we're starting to prepare ahead of time to see how we can make sure that there is no gender divide, right? Like you can't leave half the world behind in any of these topics, especially in technology now, right? And because that is the future. I mean, we're not gonna, unless the climate actually interferes with our plans to stay on this planet, we're going to have to all learn and not be scared, right? Just not be scared of hitting buttons or restarting your computer or really jumping into some investments that might be a little bit different. But as far as gender equality is concerned, there's no question in my mind that education and bringing in the younger generation as soon as possible is the way to go. So that we're going to do our best to make sure that keeps happening in our spaces.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Marie, go ahead. Then we'll do Laura.
Yeah, I don't know what to add. They said the best things, but creating opportunities for all of them, women and men, especially young age, is very important. So that's what we do, and helping everyone to reach their maximum potential is our vision and our dream. So by giving them those tools and those accesses and the opportunity not to try things, not to be afraid, early age is what is going to, probably not save us, but we will have less problems. When you start very early age, it helps a lot. And the same thing for girls. Start early age, give them, always push them to do more, not to be afraid. Don't compare who is better, who is, don't make statements. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we all learn at different paces and in different ways. So, okay, Laurel, what are your thoughts about technology and how emerging technologies can help?
So a lot of thoughts around technologies that will bridge the divide. It's in your hands. You have all the power in the world to do certain things. And these are the things I challenge you to do for yourselves. One, invest. Go in, speaking to Ying's fintech chops, look around at places and ways to start to invest even small amounts if you don't have a lot of money. Educate yourself about investing and about savings. That is the biggest thing you can do to bridge the divide. And sure, take some risk. I would check out NFTs and Bitcoin and crypto and all that, but don't blow it all in that area. I see too many quote unquote crypto babes trying to become influencers and make money off the crypto boom. But that is just speculation. Recognize it as speculation and treat it like that. No more than 1% of your total net worth should ever be in any speculative asset. End of sentence, stop, full stop. The second thing I would tell you is to get new skills. Use education technology. There are tons of platforms now. that you can educate yourself, you can bring yourself up by learning all kinds of new skills, and you can actually rejigger your entire life and career around a new skill easily now. You don't need a lot of money, you just need to pay attention and devote the time to doing that.
Yeah.
Scale yourself. Use tools that help scale you so that you have more time. Use a personal CRM, collect everyone you know into a CRM and stay in touch with people. Use LinkedIn. Use a personal assistant like a Calendly, which helps you schedule meetings and things like that. Stay mentally healthy and emotionally fit and physically fit. All three can be done on the, in apps and, on the internet. You can now get access to really high level mental health tools, physical fitness tools, all kinds of things. So those are the 3 areas or 4 areas that I would say you need to do today.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So, okay, so we only have 5 minutes left. So about a minute each. We'll start with Ying. Just kind of maybe you're a 12-year-old girl, or your 12-year-old self. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to them as they look ahead to the decades of their life?
Yes, that's a great question. I think I will quote my our wisdom friend Jida, right, who said, "The cave you fail to enter contains the treasure that you seek." I think that would be the advice I give to my younger self is when you fear something, get excited, because that's probably where you have to go.
Yeah, interesting. And that's what will give you the confidence, I think, once we do that. Okay, Rory, go ahead. What advice?
Almost the same. Take risks. Always take risks. Don't be afraid. Jump. And the other thing is education is key. Have this strong foundation because that will help you throughout your career. And also continuous learning, of course. Like Laurel said, there is so much. Don't be afraid to learn every minute and to scale. And take always risks. Never look back. Just jump. Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
I'll jump right in by saying that use the voice that you have. We always say we're bringing voices into UN. The fact is we all have voices. Do not be afraid to speak up. Always speak up. And I always like to use my niece's coffee that says, stay fierce.
Love it.
Speak up and stay fierce.
Laurel, what are your thoughts about that advice?
So I know this is going to sound strange, but know when to give up and why you're giving up. Don't give up for the wrong reasons on your goals and your the path that you've put yourself on. There's a reason why you've put yourself on that path. I see so many young people today who just do job change after job change every 6 months, every year. And I say to them and to myself, fear, laziness, exhaustion, barriers that you're hitting, those are not good reasons to quit a path. Stay on the path until you find the true thing that you absolutely love that is better than what you're on.
I think picking a life partner too, that is supportive of what you're doing and is with you and understands. My husband is also an entrepreneur, so he gets, what we're all going through. And I think that's to pick a steady partner that's with you too is an important piece of advice for young people. You guys are awesome. I mean, this was a great panel. I learned so much. I can see on the comments, we've got so many compliments as well. Such great insight. And thank you so much to fintech.tv for hosting this. Just to give you a little information about fintech.tv, a leading international fintech platform. We're at the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the London Stock Exchange, reaching 850 million households globally through distribution on broadcast as well as digital. So thank you to fintech.tv, also to Compro and the Armenian International Women's Association, and to all of the panelists today for all your great thoughts. Appreciate it.